The old Blackwood Manor loomed ominously against the darkening sky, its decrepit facade a silent testament to years of neglect and abandonment. For decades, whispers had circulated through the small town about the chilling screams that echoed from within its walls every night as the clock struck midnight. Some said it was the wind whistling through broken windows. Others swore it was the tormented soul of the house's former owner, brutally murdered within those very walls. 5 friends, fueled by a mixture of curiosity and bravado, decided to put an end to the rumors once and for all. They gathered at the rusty gates of Blackwood Manor, flashlights in hand and hearts pounding with anticipation. Sarah, the self-proclaimed leader of the group, pushed open the creaking gate, its hinges groaning in protest. "Last chance to back out," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The others exchanged nervous glances, but stood their ground. They had come too far to turn back now. As they approached the front door, the air grew thick with an oppressive silence. The door swung open at Sarah's touch, as if inviting them into its dark embrace. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet, each step echoing through the empty halls like a gunshot in the night. Room after room revealed nothing but dust-covered furniture and tattered curtains dancing in the breeze. The group's confidence grew with each empty space they explored. Perhaps the stories were just that, stories. But as they climbed the grand staircase to the second floor, a chill ran down their spines. The temperature dropped suddenly, their breath visible in the beam of their flashlights. At the end of the long hallway stood a single door, slightly ajar. "That's got to be it," whispered Mike, his voice trembling. "The room where it happened." Sarah nodded, steeling herself as she pushed the door open. The hinges screamed in protest, the sound piercing the silence like a knife. As their flashlights swept across the room, they froze in terror. There in the corner sat a shadowy figure in an ancient armchair. It didn't move, didn't breathe, it simply existed, a void of darkness against the peeling wallpaper. The friends stood transfixed, unable to move or speak. Suddenly, without warning, the door behind them slammed shut with a deafening bang. Panic erupted as they clawed at the handle, desperate to escape. But it was locked tight, trapping them in the room with the sinister presence. "We need to get out of here," screamed Lisa, tears streaming down her face. But as they turned back to face the room, their blood ran cold. The shadowy figure was gone. A piercing scream shattered the air, and the friends watched in horror as Mike collapsed to the ground, his body contorting unnaturally. His eyes rolled back in his head, foam bubbling from his lips as he gasped for air. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. Mike lay still, his unseeing eyes staring at the ceiling. The remaining friends huddled together, paralyzed with fear. The temperature in the room plummeted further, their breath coming out in ragged clouds. And then, they saw it, a ghostly apparition materializing before their eyes. It was the figure from the chair, now clearly visible as a man in his mid-40s, dressed in clothes from another era. His face was contorted in rage and pain, spectral blood dripping from a gaping wound in his chest. "You dare to trespass in my home?" the spirit hissed, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. "You will join me in eternal torment." The friends screamed in unison, scrambling for the door. By some miracle, it flew open, and they tumbled into the hallway. They ran blindly, tripping over their own feet in their haste to escape the horrors that pursued them. But as they reached the bottom of the stairs, another scream rang out. Sarah turned to see Tom being dragged back up the stairs by an invisible force, his fingers leaving deep gouges in the wood as he fought against his unseen attacker. "Help me," he cried, his voice filled with terror. But before anyone could react, he vanished into the darkness of the upper floor, his screams abruptly silenced. The remaining 3 friends burst out of the front door, gasping for air as they stumbled across the overgrown lawn. But their relief was short-lived. Lisa suddenly stopped, her eyes wide with fear. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. The others listened, and their blood ran cold. The sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, was coming from inside the house and getting closer. "Run!" Sarah screamed, grabbing Lisa's hand and pulling her towards the gate. But as they reached it, Lisa's hand was suddenly torn from her grasp. Sarah turned to see her friend being pulled back towards the house by an invisible force, her heels leaving deep furrows in the earth as she fought against it. "Sarah, help me!" Lisa cried, reaching out desperately. But it was too late. With a final, blood-curdling scream, Lisa was dragged back into the darkness of Blackwood Manor, the door slamming shut behind her with finality. Sarah and Jake ran through the night, their lungs burning as they put as much distance as possible between themselves and the House of Horrors. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of the town, collapsing on the steps of the police station. As they gasped out their story to the skeptical officers, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She turned slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. There, across the street, stood the ghostly figure from the house. It smiled at her, a cruel, twisted grin that promised this was far from over. The next day, search parties combed through Blackwood Manor, but found no trace of Mike, Tom, or Lisa. The house stood silent once more, its secrets locked away behind crumbling walls and shuttered windows. But every night, as the clock strikes midnight, the town is filled with the sound of screams. Not one, but 4 distinct voices crying out in eternal agony. And Sarah knows, with a certainty that chills her to her very core, that one day she too will join her friends in the dark room of Blackwood Manor, where the last scream echoes forever in the night.